Welcome to our first inaugural Social Talk. This is given by the Sociology program and the Sociology Club. Social Talk stands for Society, Ourselves, and Culture. We're going to make this a monthly thing beginning this year. We'll have some talks and future talks for this semester. Pokemon Go, fan failure, the future of gaming, dirtbags and hippies, perceptions of rock climbers, Kentucky, hey, why sociologists study courses. You'll note that these are planned to be the first Tuesday of the month, except for December, it will be on Wednesday. It'll all be at this time in this room. And even if they don't offer it, maybe you love your professor for extra credit for attending, not just our talks, but all talks on campus. Some disclosures about today's talk on the current election. For myself, I am politically affiliated with any party. I never have been. I have not decided for whom I will cast my vote. Very will likely dislike either candidate who wins, and I'm endorsing no one including preferred party options, just to let you know my background and perspective here. I'm going to be an equal opportunity offender tonight. If you find yourself favor either candidate Trump or Clinton, you will likely be unhappy with some things I have to say about them. On the other hand, if you have strong negative feelings against one of them, you'll like what I have to say, but just wait, your candidate will be on the chopping block at some point. And if you dislike what I say about your candidate, just wait, the other candidate's turn will be on shortly. And I will also like to have people avoid the go-to mentality. We often put politics as we often do sports. We favor our team, we overlook their flaws and foibles, we focus on the other one, hopefully they will lose every time, and that often they just overlook problems with our own gaps and weaknesses. This makes often having to give us an unclear vision of what we're being sold. All right? So, my general questions, I think, informing this talk is what sort of election behavior are we witnessing? What sort of president will we be electing? And only a small consideration here and there to actually their policy positions. Hopefully that'll become clear as to why I've done that as talk goes on. All right, so anyway, let's start what I'm calling the low-hanging fruit. Both candidates have personal traits that will be difficult for the average American to deal with during the duration of the presidential term. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, let's start here. Candidate Trump, he's orange, all right? He looks completely wrong. I mean, this is the kind of face you would are not a candidate or a popular person in culture, just walking down the street, we would giggle at, and always have. People who can't tell they've got too much spray tan on, and the comparisons have been made not unfairly. That's superficial, of course, but still, can't imagine looking at 48 years of orange president. For candidate Clinton, listen to this voice. You know, she seems like she's always yelling at you. You know, even when she's giving straight up answers to reporters' questions, constantly just yelling at you. And again, that's going to be difficult to tolerate. Now, these are kind of caricatures more than real people in a sense, but nevertheless, they're there. One important to point out, though, is he's the most unpopular candidate since this data has been collected. All right, that is not a stretch. I mean, it's not by just a small margin going back to the 1980s. They're greatly disliked by the public. Even going back to the last election with Romney and Obama, Clinton and Trump far below popularity ratings. And it's actually not surprising when we take out young people ineligible to vote, take out people who voted for third parties, take out people who wasn't that many in the primary season, take out felons or anything. Only 9% of the public are voted for these two candidates. And that's the choice, nevertheless, that we are left with. So they're not popular, but nevertheless, one of the two, dare we say, will be the next president of the United States. Now, they're unpopular also with their own leadership and their base. If we look at the primary, Sanders polled better than Clinton against all Republican candidates. I heard many, many times that, well, we still have to vote for Hillary because there's no way Bernie can win the general election, when the data suggested otherwise. But nevertheless, the Democratic base decided to go with Clinton. And Trump was and is very unpopular with Republican leadership, something the base actually likes. They're tired of the party elites directing the ticket. And they have tried to get him off the ticket repeatedly, and they have failed. So, looking at some numbers, Bernie was the most popular candidate, as I mentioned, tested better against than Clinton did against Bush, Cruz, Kasich, Rubio, and Trump by several percentage points on each measure. The public was more comfortable with Sanders than Clinton at 46 and Trump at 30, and more anxious about Trump and Clinton than Sanders. Sanders is the only candidate with a net positive rating amongst the public. The distance between these bars shows the distance between the favorability and unfavorability rating. And he's the only one that had a more favorable rating versus all of them. And then towards the end, this poll comes up from New York Times. Favorable 41 for Sanders, 31 for Clinton, and 26 for Trump. So as we all know, though, he did not make the final cut. He was so popular, in fact, he had to be destroyed. Right? So this is typical mainstream political stab at Sanders. He's all piss and vinegar, too much anger, too much rancor, works as a protest candidate, but not as a national candidate. So the Democratic National Committee Chair Wasserman, what did you do to help the DNC get rid of Sanders? A couple of things: schedule debates at odd times to attract fewer viewers. There was a big football game, I think it was in Iowa, which is scheduled a debate during it, so the audience would be smaller. Shutting Sanders out of the party data file to figure out how he could get better voter demographics, and then stacking convention committee nominees and Clinton supporters. So scandalous was her behavior, and outrage was so loud that she was forced to resign as head of the Democratic National Committee, and was promptly rewarded by Hillary Clinton by being hired by her campaign. So that's what got us there. What about Trump? After the last election, Romney loses, and the RNC, the Republican National Committee, produced they called an autopsy. Right? It's called the Growth and Opportunity Project. And basically what it did, it broke down what happened in the last election and what the Republican Party was going to need to do moving forward to remain viable in national politics. And the conclusion basically was that it had to expand its base, include more Hispanics, which is a growing demographic and Pennsylvania Democrat, more women, historically siding with liberal candidates more than men have, more African Americans, they're about 13% of the population, which is the voting bloc, more young people, voters of the future, and not make anti-LGBTQ issues part of the platform, which tends to turn off the young voting bloc. So that was their plan, what they thought that should happen in the future. So how did that turn out? Well, Trump on Mexico. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems. They're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, crime, rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. Not a very good way to court the Hispanic vote in the United States. He also has his famous designs for the wall. That's certainly predicted to bury the Latino vote. In fact, more recent data suggests, in fact, he's struggling with them. On women, Trump has made several comments that have not pulled them to his side. Let me play a short clip here.
Bimbo, dog, fat pig.
Real quotes from Donald Trump about women. A person who is very flat-chested is very hard to be a 10.
I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers.
Look at that face. Would anyone vote for that?
She had the height, she had the beauty. She was crazy. But these are minor details.
I like kids. I mean, I won't do anything to take care of them. I'll supply funds, and she'll take care of the kids.
You know, it really doesn't matter what they write, as long as you've got a young and beautiful piece of ass.
That must be a pretty picture. You dropping to your knees.
There was blood coming out of her eyes. Blood coming out of her wherever.
Women. You have to treat them like
This is how Donald Trump talks about.
All right, I'll stop there before they give you their political pitch. So these are quotes from Trump that clearly are not going to court the women's vote. And then, of course, what are his odds of attracting large swaths of African-American voters when at the same time attracting these gentlemen at this convention? Well, in fact, what we see here in the national polling amongst Black Americans is scored around 6% and much higher. So basically, Trump's strategy, whether intentionally or not, has been successful at doing the exact opposite of what the party leadership had set out for the next election. And of course, he's losing young voters by a handful, 50% to 18%. So in every different category, he's done the exact opposite of what was wanted by Republican leadership. Now, he's been relatively silent on LGBTQ issues, and one wonders why. Well, it's very, very likely, my guess being that not only is that counter to the young vote, but also his voting base and the Republican Party isn't very much against these issues, so he has to maintain their focus and vote as well. And so the Republican leadership, what have they done? Well, they've been trying to oust him, right? It's almost kind of comical that the party has gone through its own procedures and process. They got a candidate, the leaders say, oh no, how do we get rid of them? And they've tried many, many different ways and failed at all of them. Anybody but Trump did not pick up any particular steam. There is some buyer's remorse for both candidates by August. A little bit more for Trump, as you'll see, about a 10-point swing of people who believe he was not their best option, and for Clinton, about a 5-point swing. Right? Candidate secrecy has been an issue that they've shared in common. Trump has refused to release his tax records, which has been a standard for candidates since the 1970s at least. And Clinton refused to release transcripts of Wall Street speeches to executives there. Now, for both of these, one wonders why. Why would they do this? Here's Trump's stocks for his casinos and hotels trending downward at the same time the U.S. stock market was a little bit of a bounce, but nevertheless generally trending upward over the same period of time. He's had many business failures. How are you going to run? We're going to run the country like a business, but we see a lot of mistakes, airlines, and so on for bankruptcies. Not a record to really run on. And then, of course, Clinton. She has a very close relationship with Wall Street. And it's interestingly enough, there's been more Wall Street money directed her way directly than Trump's. Not the kind of image you would expect from the hardened Democrat she wants to portray herself as. Clinton handling of her email as Secretary of State also shows somewhere between incompetence, stupidity, or willful mismanagement. If you follow the stories on this, more recently she's claimed that she didn't know files marked C were confidential. She's pulled out the strategy in the Reagan era during the corruption scandals there that she doesn't recall and doesn't remember some of the instructions that she was given. We heard just today that some of her staff members have destroyed computers that the FBI got records off of. So either we're dealing with somebody who's involved in this, or at least is trying to maintain some sort of deniability. But if she did any of this knowingly, these are federal offenses, possibly even treasonous. The FBI, imagine we have a presidential candidate under a federal investigation. Her voters were not swayed by that. It did not seem. And then this gentleman decided that all those missing emails were not an indictable offense. One wonders if you or I were in the same position, would we be under indictment? There's other tenuous security trustworthiness coming from Trump's side. During the email scandal, he encouraged foreign hackers to break into servers to investigate Clinton's emails. Now think about that for a second. That asking a foreign power to steal state secrets, you're a presidential candidate. You know? I mean, that is, again, one I consider treasonous behavior. And if not, at least a disqualifier for higher office. His former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, right, has been found to have millions in illegal cash payments coming from Ukraine, one of the former pro-Russian administration. Now, this is a Republican candidate, again, whose former campaign manager had close ties with the pro-Russian administration. I wonder what this would sound like coming out of my mouth in 1980 or 1984. Some stuff on their mental health questions. First with Trump. Clearly, the man's a narcissist. He's in total love with himself. Multiple people. It doesn't take a specialist to confirm this, but nevertheless, the observation has been made somewhat across the board. According to Psychology Today, who are we dealing with when we're dealing with our arrogant behavior, lack of empathy for the people, need for admiration, what else? Frequently described as cocky, self-centered, manipulative, and demanding, and back down here, psychopathy and Machiavellianism. Not always traits that you might find, sometimes they've been necessary at the higher level of government, but certainly would not campaign on these kind of characteristics. Trump's health, again, being Machiavelli, he said that Hillary wants to abolish essentially the Second Amendment. By the way, if she gets to pick her judges, nothing we can do, folks, all those Second Amendment people, maybe there is, often read by quite a number of people suggesting that gun rights citizens should take it up arms against her. But of course, like politicians do, said with some plausible deniability. He also accused Obama of being the founder of ISIS, and when they called him on it, said, hey, it's be a matter of rhetorical. No, I'm serious, literally the founder, which of course is kind of absurd. And then finally, the other thing I'll mention here, some kind of disturbing behavior from him. While the picture on the left is maybe lacking in taste and has a creep factor, this quote he said on national TV about 10 years ago, although she does have a very nice figure, I said, Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. All right. Now this is, I remind you, somebody running for the highest office. He's going to represent you, me, our country on a world stage. And these are the kind of things coming out of his mouth. Now Clinton, same time, has a history of Machiavellian activity, manipulation of personal gain. As a young woman, 27-year-old, she was on a committee investigating Watergate, and she was fired by her boss. When asked why, she said because she was a liar, she was an unethical, dishonest lawyer, she conspired to violate the Constitution, the rules of the House, the rules of the committee, and the rules of confidentiality. So that kind of behavior, we've seen her accused of during this election, goes a long way back. Other forms of lies and hypocrisy. Now, this statement would seem uncontroversial on a statement depending on who you talk to, but let's see what she said. I want to send a message to every survivor of sexual assault. Don't let anyone silence your voice. You have the right to be heard. You have the right to be believed, and we're with you. Unless, of course, you're Bill Clinton. All right. Her husband, accused by many, many women of sexual assault, and of the accusers, she says, who is going to find out these women are trash? Nobody is going to believe them. So we have a person willing, like Donald Trump, to say what is ever expedient and convenient at the time, regardless of their previous statements. Now, recently, there's been additional rumors about Clinton's health, and let me show you what some of this looks like. All right. There have been several flattering and even disturbing videos, and this is just a short compilation of them.
Let's deal first with the Hillary Clinton issue. We've looked at a number of images of events that have taken place over the course of the past year. There seems to be a real problem.
Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton has reportedly fainted and suffered a concussion.
Secretary Clinton has had a history of unexplained falls, a fall leading to post-concussive syndrome, which was documented, and then a cerebral venous thrombosis.
She was found to have a blood clot on the outside of her brain.
It was, I think a serious concussion.
But no neurologist has ever come forward, and we've never seen her record.
They're going to great lengths to hide any concerns over Clinton's health.
And get the cost out of I had I had double vision for a short period of time, and I had some dizziness.
Faints before a speech, falls boarding an airplane in Yemen, faints, hits her head, suffers a concussion, diagnosed with a blood clot following her fall.
We should be able to look at full health records, especially in her case. We have a right to know fully what a neurologist says about this.
How is your health? It's very good, thank you.
All right, so these videos and people dissecting them have become quite the phenomenon in the last week or two, at least. On the right, people are accusing the conservatives of claiming, well, they have claimed that she has Parkinson's disease, and certain doctors have been hauled out and cited saying, hey, there are questions about this. And here, people doing the digging. The email suggests that which top 8 was researching a drug that treats Alzheimer's. And then Dr. Drew Pinsky questions her health on national television. He was very concerned about her health and her treatment. He didn't mention, if I got it correct, didn't mention Parkinson's directly, and then got fired. The show got canceled a few days later. The story being it was just a coincidence, whether that's true or not. National recognized doctor here. Now, let's think about this. If this is true, if Clinton is in the middle of Parkinson's, right, she's unfit for the office, right? I mean, basically, her health will decline. The pressures of the office will, you know, if you knew this, most people would not be voting for this person. They'd be basically voting for a VP. And so it's a fiasco if that's the case, and a disservice she stays in it. But if it's false, well, let's say she's fine, all right? Well, then conservative operatives are behaving disgracefully, right? They're working for Trump, they should be fired, and they should keep him on the payroll. He's unfit for office. But that's where we've gotten on this particular metric, and it is doing no one any service. So anyway, what we've seen from Clinton as well is in terms of trustworthiness, unethical behavior in Watergate, history of quasi-criminal conduct. The word on the Clintons is they often go right up to the edge of the law. Whitewater, back in the Arkansas days, was almost indicted. The Clinton Foundation, the question there is that Secretary of State, she had a high number of people who contributed to her foundation, the chairman of the foundation, then got to meet with her as a politician. This is often been called play for pay, something you should be arrested for and can be arrested for, of course. The denials were forthcoming, and the email server should not keep state secrets and seems to have lied about it. New York Times, PolitiFact does a scorecard of the candidates' overall trustworthiness. They all kind of see what they have to say about a particular issue or so. And you'll see for Clinton, and again, they score them not necessarily on their opinions. Opinions aren't really true or false, but rather they got the facts right. From mostly true to true, that's about 50% of the time. Half true, that is flip a coin, about 22%. Then false, mostly false. Pants on fire, that's about 27% of the time there. Trump's scorecard by the same group. Telling the truth about 4% of the time, mostly true about 11%, half true another 15, but more so than Clinton, mostly false, false and pants on fire. Over half the time, simply has his facts wrong according to PolitiFact. Now, I want us to do a mental experiment here, all right? Think about this. If you took the names away and the party affiliations away, right? And somebody told you here are the candidates without telling you, again, party or names. All right? Imagine a candidate supposed by conservative Republican leadership, was not favored by Wall Street, previously donated to Democrats, main advisor has ties to pro-Russian interests, encouraging foreign hackers to break into government servers, divorced 3 times, not religious in any meaningful way, seemingly pro-choice. Who would you think that candidate, what party they were running for? Right? And then the opposite side. Young Republican college, former lawyer for Wall Street, favored by Wall Street donors, more hawkish on foreign policy, rejects national health care system, favored NAFTA, favors Trans-Pacific Partnership, under federal investigation, according to Henry Kissinger's endorsement. Which candidate would you think on that description that was? They switched places just on these terms. sheet seems to have all the descriptions here of a Republican, and he has all the descriptions here, often of Democrat, or at least what people would assume, the Republicans would assume looked like a Democrat, and what Democrats would assume looked like a Republican. So it's like Seinfeld opposite day. I mean, everything's kind of backwards, and not much of it makes any real sense. Well, we deserve better. Okay? As a public and a republic, we deserve better. Neither candidate represents the American people's will. Neither candidate represents American society with dignity worthy of the office. Neither candidate is trustworthy. Both candidates seem to have a me-first mentality. Machiavellianism is at the center of both candidates' behaviors. Both candidates seem to have mental health questions, and the election has become a personality contest. Serious issues facing the country seem to have taken a back seat. We have stagnating living standards in the United States. They've been declining for at least 3 decades. The economy is not recovering, even if Wall Street's up. The money or the wealth of the average household is being stretched more thin than ever. Student debt, I don't have to tell you much about that. You guys should know that all too well. It's staggering, and it's only going to seemingly get worse. Our healthcare system is still failing. Obamacare did not solve the problem. We've got environmental crises left and right. Wealth is most concentrated we've seen in U.S. history. Veterans are in a crisis. We're losing more veterans at home to suicide after they've served in the war. The VA has become even harder, a labyrinth for them to get their treatment in. And again, the country, our politicians have said very, very little about it. Obama, one thing he ran on was fixing the problem with infrastructure. Obstructionism in Washington has allowed him not to get very far on that. That's still going on. We need to replace our dependence on fossil fuels. This is just to name a few serious problems we're facing in the country. And our candidates have given us what they have given us. All right, so I bring this to the end here. Rather than go on for an hour or so about this, I wanted to kind of give what I thought was a snapshot here. So first of all, I'm going to open up to kind of any questions or comments from the audience. As we find out, maybe find out. All right, happy to take questions.
Dr. Paolucci, given the position of these two candidates, do we then look to their vice presidential? Do they take on added salience in terms of the fact that they very realistically could become assume the presidency?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how we would see. Well, for Trump, one of the words on the street was he's told Pence, "I'll just be out in front doing stuff, and you can run the country." The question is in the sense of, is he really interested in being an executive? Here's what I think I'll tell you about Pence. The people in Indiana who elected him governor almost roundly hate the man now. All right. Mm-hmm. I read stories about even Republican strongholds in Indiana all having "Get rid of Mike Pence" signs up in their yard. With Clinton, I think we're kind of looking through the looking glass, as they say, in terms of if her health if it's true, it's bad. How could you honest? What's she going to do? Step down after the first week? Thanks for voting for me. I'm the first woman president. Then step down. What is she in it for still? If she is that sick. On the other hand, if she's not, well, then we have a non-issue that has been thrown up as dust in our faces and makes it more difficult to suss out what's going on here. That said, I think it's bad advice to be voting for vice presidents. Yeah.
If Donald Trump is elected president, would he have to give up ownership of all of the businesses he owns?
Normally what would happen there, I don't think he would have to, but normally what would happen is a candidate would put that in a trust, right, to be managed by somebody else. Can I ask our expert in governance here? Is that correct? Right. So basically say, somebody else will manage my money, therefore people won't look at me as somebody who's running my foreign policy for my own gain. Right. So that's normally what should happen there. Yes?
Just picking up on that, so a candidate or a sitting president can, their interest being held somewhere else, can make a profit or make money as long as they're not controlling it?
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, as long as somebody else is. Now, I think Will Rogers had the joke, these are called holding companies, right? And so you put your money in a holding company. And he says, holding company is where you put your money while the cops search your pockets. And then you go back. So the idea that some politician would never call up the people controlling it and say, hey, you know, even if that might be.
I'm thinking of Dick Cheney when I say all this.
Given the state of like the moneyed interest in our country, is it surprising at all that we have these candidates and it doesn't matter who wins?
Well, it will matter in some issues. Like, for example, they're going to be appointing Supreme Court justices. I would think you're going to see very, very different choices on that level. In terms of their money interest there, I would think that's going to very tightly rein in the variety of policy initiatives you would see at Clinton versus a Trump thing. But one thing I said about that, my reading is that Clinton, even if she's talking against the TPP right now, she has been long-term endorser of kind of global free trade initiatives. And I read Trump more as an economic nationalist, even if he's had foreign investment and had stuff made in sweatshops, whatever else. I see him more of more of an American first type of person. I'm very wrong on that. But on the other hand, you know, once he got us into a trade war too, and it came back to bite us in the rear end, his buddies on Wall Street would sit him down very quickly and say, you know, this might help you in an election, but we can't keep doing this. Sir?
I was going to say, I'm sorry.
I can come back to you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Depending on who is elected, do you think there would, people have always made jokes like, oh, if Donald Trump gets elected, I'm moving to Canada. But do you think there would be the possibility of riots happening in the event of whoever wins the election?
Yeah.
Mexico.
You know, in the past, that's often been kind of out there, but never really happened. I think the big variable there would be is how close the election is when we get closer to election day. And if we find like a Dewey versus Truman situation where the media were announcing one candidate winning and they didn't, you know, if they got called too soon or something like that, maybe. But if it's a week out, and what we're hearing is Trump's 10, 11 points down the polls and whatever else, maybe. But I wouldn't bet it on that. You know, for a riot to happen, what you need is a lot of really angry people in one spot.
Yeah, that's like
what I mean, rather than them suddenly running out of their homes in the middle of the night and the election's called. Yeah, here then I think there's one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I got it back. It seems like with, you know, like you said, like they were all very unpopular with the public, but they're still representing candidates of each of the party. It does seem like the vote's no longer, the people's vote no longer really matters anymore.
Well, one thing you got to remember here is that neither party is constitutionally endorsed, right? They're their own parties, and they can run them how they want, okay? So there's nothing in the Constitution that says we have to have Republicans or Democrats, right? Now, there's also nothing that says you have to go vote for Republicans or Democrats. Now, why do we have these two parties? Well, there's multiple reasons. First thing I would mention is that when you have what's called winner-take-all system, you gravitate to two parties. Why don't people vote for third or fourth party? Well, because they never get represented. So, for example, if you're a Green Party candidate or a Libertarian, in Europe, if you got 6% of the votes, you get 6% of the seats in the federal government, right? So nobody's going to tell you you're throwing your vote away. You're actually getting represented, right? So in this federal election, you vote for Jill Stein or
Gary Johnson,
you're not going to win, right? So whether you're throwing your vote away or not, it's a different story. Then you add in things like gerrymandering for local elections. You add in things like at the party level in terms of electing candidates, the behind the scenes things they can do with giving people resources, money, but also volunteers, whatever else. They can kind of guide. Now, what has gotten the Republican leadership is that in apoplexy is that everything they did failed. All right, everything they did. And one thing that we see similar to Sanders supporters and Trump supporters is they all have a sense that the system stinks and it's rigged against them, right? And we're only going to get more and more cynical now. Because Sanders was the most popular candidate. The party base wanted Trump. The leadership didn't. He kept getting the votes. And then they tried to get rid of him outside of their own kind of rules. So, yeah, I mean, you know, it does breed a sense of helplessness and cynicism in the sense of nobody wanted these guys, and suddenly they somehow still end up victorious. With another hand, yeah.
Okay. On one of the slides when we were all reading about like Hillary's health issues, like what kind of health issues do you think Hillary has? Is it something on her body or something like that, or is it just something about like?
I'm not a medical doctor, but I'll tell you what. Two things I've heard. One, the interview with Dr. Drupinski said that when he read that she had something called sinus thrombosis or something like that, he stated that that's a very rare brain issue that only happens when you have a serious circulation problem or something along those lines, right? But that it's rare and serious, right? And that publicly was one of the explanations of when she passed out. It was this sinus thrombosis type of thing. And the other official explanation is when she passed out, she banged her head, had a concussion, created some disturbances, but now she's okay, all right? So those are two issues out there. I wouldn't venture to say, and again, some people take it as far as saying she's got Parkinson's. I don't know, but I do know that if, one of those things you look at, there's at least two where she's asked a lot of questions quickly. And what they claim is, very often Parkinson's patients have a hard time, neurologically processing a lot of rapid stimuli, and they kind of go to this blank out stage, right? And she kind of does seem, in a couple of those videos, look like she just loses it for a second or two. And when her campaigners admitted that, they'd say, well, it's still remnants of that concussion, but her doctors give her a clean bill of health. I don't know what the truth is. I do know, though, if it's true, the honorable thing to do is step aside and take care of your health and not run for president. If it's false, then the people putting out those stories are really a disgrace to our process.
Paul, we have a question back here.
Yeah.
Okay. At this point in the race, is there any way we can dump both candidates and start over?
The party's good. Actually, the party's good. Again, it's their party, right? They can say, we don't want them. Now, I think they're officially on ballots in all the states, and I don't know how they go about doing that. Again, let me ask Lynette. Do you have any idea if they? Yeah.
Yeah.
But so, if,
unprecedented.
Huh? It would be unprecedented for sure. Okay, and I think there's been times where candidates have been changed slightly. Huh?
The ballot. Well, actually, no, the ballot's not completely set.
Yeah.
So.
But if there were to be a change, the public is going to have anything to do with it. It's going to be the leadership of the parties.
Very answer to that question.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about the Supreme Court? There's a lot of issue on both sides of, hey, obviously, a lot of the justices within this next election term, they're bound to, either pass away or be done. So, there's been a lot of influence on both sides. Well, you're not voting for this president, you're voting on the Supreme Law of the land, you're voting on these. Either way, it's going to be stacked. So, how do you think this might influence that?
What would influence that specifically? What would influence? How what?
Do you think that, do you honestly think that we're voting for just for the Supreme Court?
No, okay, not just, but that's one of the big differences. The question I was asked earlier, though, is that with the influence of big money, would it really make a difference? And I said, well, for some policies, not too much, but for other ones, absolutely. So I would see, I would think with Clinton, he would get classically liberal justices, and I think for Trump, he would probably rely a lot on the advice of Pence. And Pence is evangelical, very, very conservative, and so you would see probably somebody in the Anthony Scalia type of mold. And you're exactly right. He's going to get at least two. The next person elected get at least two. Right? There's one vacancy, the Scalia's, and I bet you Ruth Bader Ginsburg is not long for the court. She's very old and she's recovering from pancreatic cancer. I don't know how well she's doing, but you're not in your 80s and recover from that and then go jogging and play tennis very much, So I would not be surprised to see at least those two vacancies replaced by the next president. And then that's enough to swing it in a 8 to 10, 16-year direction. Absolutely.
Well, it just seems like the current state of our country, they seem to be growing more inequality keeps showing up, and especially in this is showing a presidential election. And throughout history, the solution to this kind of inequality has been revolution, but it's specifically by the revolution. Do you think that we are headed in that same direction?
No, I don't. Currently, in my reading situation, I think we are certainly headed for more anger, continued anger, frustration, maybe the occasional Chicago '68 convention type of situation. Usually you get revolutions when people have a decent idea of one, the source of their problems, and two, a place to direct their anger. I don't think those two qualifications have really been met at all. One set of protests, they're angry at the politicians, and another set of protests, they're angry at Wall Street. And when those things are hard to sustain and they break apart, people got their jobs to go back to. But this continued bubbling up of discontentment, anger, whatever else. Because truthfully, if you peel apart the services, the Tea Partiers and the Occupy Wall Street, they seem very, very divergent, right? Tea Partiers tend to be right-wing grassroots activists, and then Occupy Wall Street was mainly about college kids, a lot of environmental activists, a lot of leftists. But the idea, though, that there are kind of a cross-section of elites, that policy has been separated from politics, right? That what gets done, the American public really doesn't have any say in, right? That people making decisions aren't looking out for people's everyday interests. I think that those two groups shared. They might have articulated it differently and had their fingers pointing in slightly different directions, but that sense of something seriously is wrong with how the country is being run, I think, does cross me.
Do you think that contention that it's elites, power elites, making decisions is that legitimate?
Yes, I do. I think it's pretty.
To what degree, though?
100%.
100%. I mean, do you think that the vast majority of our policies are decided on?
The study came out from, if I remember, it was Harvard or Oxford, and they did a study. They compared what happens when policies are offered up, and it was like sections of elites, the business community, and the public, what they were in favor of it, right? And they did this big statistical model, and they found was that things get done when elites favor policy, and what public has a policy favor or favorable has no effect on decisions that we made. This was like a 20-year, 30-year study from everybody. And yeah, my opinion, they harvest us for voters when they need us, right? That's what they do. And they use the rhetoric, use the appeal to get us out, get us to hate the other side, get us to go pull the lever, get themselves in office, but they are working for somebody else, right? And sometimes they come from that group themselves, right? Trump was born into money, Clinton worked her way up into kind of the elite circles, this and that. But you and I, our well-being is only rhetoric used for electioneering. No, I have no doubt about that. Personally, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So, I'm hoping to actually do another panel on this, but Dr. Paolucci, we've got people who study political parties and elections. We also have people who study political psychology in our department. I guess the one thing that we really struggle as political scientists, when we're all sitting around the coffee room, is why is society so polarized? From the view of a sociologist.
You mean ideologically?
Yeah, we'll look at it. I think it's a very different perspective.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I'm not going to go back and give the 30, 40-year history, okay? But I'll give you a snip of it from Reagan on, okay? Yeah. So Reagan moves the country to the right, as we know. It's not really important to detail how, but he moves the country to the right. Well, at the same time, what the Democratic Party did was they decided their strategy was going to be, one, sell out the traditional base, working class, and move to identity politics, right, number one. So they lost that big section of working class people, all right, who gravitated to Reagan. We're not going to fight for them anymore. So we're going to move to race, gender, sexuality issues, all right? And then what they did was, other than that, economically and foreign policy-wise, followed the Republicans to the right, okay? Now, the voters, instead of punishing the Democrats for that, saying, you sold out the working class, and you did this and that, whatever else, the Democratic folks kept voting for them, outside the Reagan Democrats, who kept voting for Reagan. Now, when the next election, what do? You got to distinguish yourself from the other party. So the Republicans take another step to the right. And the Democrats, instead of saying, no, we're going to go back to traditional FDR politics, or whatever else, they kept following the Republicans' right as well. And that's happened for at least 2 generations now, at least, maybe 3, all right? At least since 1980. And what we've got now, talk to somebody from Europe. Ask them what they think about the Democratic Party in the United States. They say, those aren't liberals, those are conservatives, all right? Our Democrats appear on world stage to be conservatives, and our conservatives appear now to be right-wingers, far-right wingers, right? And so the strategy, and here I'm actually blaming both parties, but primarily the Democrats, right? Because Republicans kept having to distinguish themselves, and the Democrats kept following them, right? And so the Democrats, instead of saying, you know, we're going to hold on our principles, we're going to work for working class, sure, we're going to adopt identity politics as well, because that's the right thing to do, but we're not going to stop working class people. We're going to stick behind them, right? Well, once they got dumped, where else were the working class going to go? Keep going to the right. And then the Republicans were really good at hiring PR people, hiring people who write commercials, developing a rhetoric, right? How do you convince, for example, some poor working class guy that repealing the estate tax is in his best interest? That's genius. You know, that's a tax put on millionaires, and you have to make $3 to $5 million for that to ever affect you. And you can convince some guy who's struggling to make a living that you share the interest with that millionaire. Well, that's a huge success if you can get them to identify with the millionaire party. You know? So anyway, the Democrats have continuously moved to the right rather than staying where they're at. And so the whole political rhetoric has kept them in that direction.
Both tribes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. My reading of it. Absolutely. Yeah, sir.
When the election does happen and we do vote, is there any possibility that we would see a situation like what happened in Great Britain with the Brexit vote, where some people voted to leave but didn't know what would happen, had no idea?
What would we be leaving for specifically? Or you mean like just voting for?
Just like, oh, I voted for Trump, but I didn't think he would win, like that kind of mentality.
The Jesse Ventura won governorship of Minnesota that way. Kind of like, everything's corrupt, I'm going to run, and a lot of people start voting for him. What would happen? I mean, I don't know. The one big difference between Hillary and Trump is I would be, I think, much more confident in predicting what kind of economic and foreign policy Hillary would likely have versus what Trump would do. He's kind of mysterious in that sense. And the question is, do you want to vote for somebody that you have a good sense of what they're going to do, even if you don't like it, or somebody like, I have no idea? Because the no idea part could be really terrible. I mean, they could really do really crazy off the wall stuff. So I have a hard time answering your question, but the concern is legitimate, I think, yeah. Sir?
I'm trying to get your opinion on how Hillary and Trump have avoided the anti-American label, because since they have both blatantly committed or attempted to commit treason,
yes,
which is a crime against your nation.
Yes.
In the past, we would demonize people who would even think about that, and currently we've attacked General Petraeus, two-star general for being a swinger, the director of the FBI for not pursuing charges, even though they didn't actually commit crimes, but we removed them from their positions. Why do Hillary and Trump avoid that?
That's a good question. The two gentlemen you mentioned were not the heads of a political party, and therefore they weren't answerable to the public vote directly. And one of the things I mentioned at the beginning, I'm not sure if you were here, is that we tend to have a mentality towards political parties like we do sports. All right, we pull for our team. Right? Let me give an example here, and I don't know if I might offend some people here. Louisville hired Bobby Petrino as their football coach. Okay, the guy had left them already early in a couple seasons earlier, in mid-season, had antagonized the entire administration there, went to pro, dropped out of pro, went back to Arkansas. At Arkansas, has an affair with the secretary, or no, has an affair with a co-ed, puts her on the payroll, lies to his boss about it, right, and eventually gets fired, right? So Louisville wants him back, right? And he's a winner. He knows how to win football games. So when they hire him back, Louisville fans are like, well, he was a winner, and I don't care about the morals. Morals don't win football games, this and that. Now imagine Louisville fans' reaction if UGA had hired him, right? Suddenly, all those problems he had would be fair game. They would be on the table for criticism, right? So what you have here is similar in politics. People are willing to overlook the nonsense their side does, and not the nonsense, but not the nonsense of the other team. Number one. Second, these parties have the monopoly on electable politicians, whether we like it or not. Okay. So when one filters up, well, we can't indict Hillary. That means Trump will win, right? Even if it would be the right thing to do, and vice versa. vice versa, that, hey, you know, if Trump's base said, you just told Russia to hack the State Department. What the hell's wrong with you, right? We're not voting for you. Well, they can't, because that means Hillary would win. So party is taking precedence over country.
So it comes back to like the ideological polarization she mentioned.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. So, you know, these are career people. Trump, whether it's been in business or him in front of the media, has always been about himself. And I think Hillary's career amply demonstrates she's always been about herself. I don't think either of them are where they're at for selfless desires to serve our country to the best of their ability.
How culpable do you think the you know, the media, mass media are in this country? It seems like there's no...
Terribly.
Yeah.
But you know, that's what they do. They long left the news business and entered the entertainment business a long time ago. And truthfully, all the stuff I've talked about tonight is very entertaining. All right, it gets viewers. Talking about their policy positions and the troubles of the country, you'll lose viewers left and right, and they'll all go to the channel talking about Trump's hair or Hillary's scandals or whatever else. You know, if you want to get better stories on it, you can get certain kind of nonpartisan media online. You can listen to foreign media who might do a better job of this stuff. But you gotta remember, you know, the mass media, they're there to make money, and that means drawing in viewers. And if viewers turn up for the scandals, and they don't want to hear about Trump and Hillary debate foreign policy, well, that's what they're going to report on. So I guess part of it is then our fault in the sense of what we tune into and what we don't. But it is a spectacle, that's for sure. It's a train wreck. I mean, you know, and train wrecks are entertaining. Who wouldn't go out? You know, they used to pay to go out and watch train wrecks. Literally, you guys know that? They used to, in the West, they would run these trains together, and people would go out there and go out and watch that stuff. Right? Well, that really happened.
Even amongst people that don't know a thing about politics, most people do understand that Hillary Clinton does have a great deal of foreign policy experience, and Trump has virtually none at all.
True.
So what do you think as far as how much emphasis voters should think on that when they vote?
Well, I mean, it just depends on, well, first of all, okay, he's got no experience. So he says, I'm going to get the best people. All right? I mean, he literally says, all right? Well, no, I mean, that's his, he said, I'm going to get he's always got the best everything. He's going to get the best people. But on Hillary's side, the question is, you know, even if she's got more experience, what kind of experience are we going to be touting here, right? Truthfully, I haven't stated in depth the problems with the Benghazi event that her conservative opponents like to hang around her neck, like she really messed that up. I don't know that one or the other, right? But what I do know is that she's in favor of escalating a lot of those Middle East wars, that some of her policy positions helped, not intentionally, but create a vacuum that brought ISIS to be. That she has not been very effective in managing the tinderbox that is over there. And my general impression, and a lot of other observers' general impression, is that she's more hawkish than Trump is, right? More interested in flexing U.S. muscle in that part of the world. And we know how well that has worked out thus far. Sir.
What's your view on the fact that some people view that local elections might be more crucial for this election rather than the whole national presidency?
It's a good point. Again, giving a kind of a bit of history. Back during Ronald Reagan's period, I think it was either election after him, Pat Robertson ran for president, got trounced, got embarrassed. And the Republican Party had a lot of debates. Well, I'm sorry, not the Christian right had a lot of debates. And what they decided was that shooting for the top was not a very effective strategy. And what they would try to do then is literally start from dog catcher, city council, and going up, and start putting their interest in funding at these local levels, right? And then their candidates would start filtering into state and whatever else. And that has been very successful because for example, Ted Cruz has much more extreme, at least publicly, policy statements than Pat Robertson did when he ran. Pat Robertson kind of even toned it down when he ran, right? But you saw how far Ted Cruz got. All right. So the idea of becoming kind of getting the public used to kind of a political message from that point of view clearly has paid off in that bottom-up strategy. And one of the reasons is not only that people can kind of get used to you and your constituents, but you can have more effect. I mean, all right, so if I'm President Obama and I start a war and a bunch of kids die, that could affect your life, but maybe you don't know anybody who goes, right? But if I'm the mayor of Richmond and I decided that, oh, I don't know, we're never going to pave the streets or pick up the trash or do whatever else, your quality of life goes in the toilet, right? So very often local politicians and their decisions can have a much quicker and immediate impact on people. As we saw, for example, Governor Devitt in the situation with the colleges across Kentucky. So, you know, there might be something to that. Hey, you know, the differences between presidential candidates might be minor on most issues, probably not judges, but, you know, the real rubber hits the road as far as the difference is more at the local and state level. There's probably some truth to that. I saw a hand up right there.
Never mind.
No? Other questions? Seems like we're getting towards the end of it. Okay, well, thanks for coming. Before you go, we'll have somebody over here at this table for your